Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're having an amazing day so far. My name is Phil. I'm guitar player, vocalist, and mastermind of the thrash metal band Tempest, which is hailing from Aachen, Germany. And I have the incredible honor and pleasure being asked by Luxi from the Metal Crypt to present to you guys my top 4 picks of the most influential albums of my life. Now, again, thank you, Luxi from the Metal Crypt, for asking me to present this. I'm a total passionate musician. I love music, so it's super fun doing this for me. Absolute no-brainer. Of course I'm in as soon as Luxi asked me if I'm gonna do this. I was thinking a little bit around, so how I'm gonna present this to you and what style, but I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna have the CDs over here. I'm just gonna hold them in the camera, talk a little about them, and then we're gonna go one by one through. Number 1, or number 4, if you want to say so, is Iron Maiden, Dance of Death. Now, of course, the artwork of this album is the most hideous thing that ever has crawled under the sun, but the songs itself, I find absolutely spectacular. I love this album so much. The reason why I love this album so much is this is the first heavy metal album which I had, and Iron Maiden is my absolutely favorite band. So, Iron Maiden, they were the first big band which I ever loved, and they will be the last band which I ever loved. I'm a total Maiden fan, and this is the first album which I got from them. You know, like one day my mother just came along and said, "Hey, you listen to Iron Maiden? I bought this. I found this, somewhere at a local sale at an electronics store. So here you have it." And yeah, why this is so influential is, of course, it's the first album, but also the third song, "No More Lies," was the one which inspired me to actually start playing guitar. So when I heard that, it just it touched me somehow, emotionally. And so at the first opportunity when I had a guitar, I learned this. This was the first thing which I learned on the guitar and kind of set my pathway to, doing guitar playing and music on a daily basis. So every day of my life, I'm basically grabbing the guitar, doing music and stuff like that. And this was one of the kickstarting moments. Next up, we got something which is more in line of what Tempest are doing musically, and that is Testament: Formation of the Nation. Now, this has been released in 2008. I was 18 years back then when this was released. And wow, this was such an eye-opener. This blew my mind, literally. So, a buddy of mine, Daniel, he's the bass player of Tempest, and he was also the guitar player of our former band, Vishnu. He bought this album, and he just let it run while we were at his place. We were chilling in his room. He let it run. And the intro for The Glory Of was running, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This sounds good, I only knew, up to that point, Disciples of the Watch and Into the Pit, and I liked them, but they were more on the obscure side of things, like one of those bands you like a few songs of, you headbang, and then it's all good. For The Glory Of was like, oh, this sounds interesting. This sounds a little bit different than what I know from them. And then, boy, More Than Meets the Eye kicked in, and wow, I was like, you know that meme where the guy has his head exploding? That was me, right? Totally. I was so hooked on this album immediately. It was kind of feeling like I just ran out of his room up to the next store and bought the album myself. And this is this copy over here, which I'm holding in my hands. But not only the songs are super, I love the drumming of Paul Bostaph. He has massively influenced how I view drums, how I want drums to sound like when writing music myself. And from a production point of view, I think this is the best sounding album I have ever heard. This is, for me, the blueprint which I want Tempest to sound like. Just a killer record. Testament, I think the only album which kind of rivals it is Dark Roots of Earth. And then after that, they have a little bit shifted their style. Not too much, of course, but enough that it's not as good as this album over here. So, this is my top 3. Now, my top 2 is very controversial, and that is Metallica, Saint Anger. Now, hear me out on this. First off, this album is not my favorite music of Metallica when it comes to the listening experience. So I like Ride the Lightning like way more musically speaking. But I have to say, and this is where it becomes very personal. My childhood and my teenage years have not been the easiest, to say it very, very frankly and very diplomatic. Actually, they were an absolute shithole of a mess. And yeah, this album, in what it stands for, reflects that absolute imminent rage which I felt as a teenager. So Saint Anger was the song which I watched on, metal TV night at nighttime, and the lyrics they so much resonated with me. This hate on the world, this is it me or is it the fault of the other people, which I found out it was. When you're a teenager and you're in that shitty mess and your life is kind of worthless to you, okay, it's not your fault if you think that way when you are a teenager, And this entire album resonated so much with me on so many different levels. I love the snare sound, to be honest. The snare sound perfectly resembles that anger, like kicking a fucking trash can. Exactly, that's what it's about, having hate on the world. And this album speaks to me on a very emotional and personal level, and therefore it's super influential on me coping with this kind of life which I had. I'm now in a much better place, so don't worry. But this is super influential, and therefore this has actually the top 2 spot. Now, before we get to number 1, I have chosen some honorable mentions, which I will very quickly glance over. So, another very controversial album, actually, especially considering the newer stuff which happened, is Iced Earth, Glorious Burden. Now, we don't have to talk about John Schaffer being absolute dick. We don't have to talk about Tim Ripper Owens having some very, very questionable political views in general. But this album is a banger, in my opinion. I really, really listened a lot to this. I was super into high-pitched screaming stuff back then when I kind of encountered this album, which was around 2007. And then short after, they released their, what was it called? Framing Armageddon. I also love that album. Really cool. But yeah, honorable mention. Another honorable mention is this CD over here, Iron Maiden, A Matter of Life and Death. Artwork is killer. It was the first album of Iron Maiden which I bought at release day. So I kind of discovered Iron Maiden somewhere around 2003, late 2003, early 2004. So this came out 2006. And yeah, this was the first album which I bought in the store on release day, and I was super proud. And I watched Iron Maiden. That was my first concert on the tour for this album in 2007. So this has a quite big influence on me, and therefore it's an honorable mention. Next up, we got Exodus, Temple of the Damned. Killer record. From a production standpoint, this was really influential, similar to Formation of the Nation, but not that much, but still. And yeah, the songs are kick-ass, and this was on heavy rotation for years. And occasionally still is, or every time it is on rotation, I'm like, wow, this is fucking amazing. So yeah, honorable mention on that one. Last honorable mention before we get then to number 1 is Slayer, Seasons in the Abyss. This was the first Slayer album which I really dug. Seasons in the Abyss was the first Slayer song which kind of spoken to me from a musical perspective. And then after that, while my musical taste evolved more and more into harder, faster, louder, then I kind of came into Rain and Blood and all that stuff. So this has a special place in my heart for that reason, that it kind of brought me to Slayer. And yeah, Seasons in the Abyss, awesome record. Now, with all of that out of the way, this is going to be super cheesy and super chill-like, but hear me out on this one. The most influential album of my life is our own record, which has been released last year, Tempest, Point of No Return. Hear me out on why this is the most influential album of my life. It of course, I love the songs on this. I wrote them, and the music's great. Get it? No, but that's not the reason why. Um, the kickstart of this album has been done after we have separated from Marco, founding member of Tempest, and also Peter, our bass player back then, left the band. So it was only me and Gabo, and Simon also then came to the band, the current guitar player, and it was kind of a messy situation because that was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So we were uncertain: will the band exist? Will we get through this as a band, or will we will we separate? Where are we going to rehearse? Because the rehearsing place was from Marco, which we were previously at. So there was a lot of uncertainty in that aspect. And Tempest has been, at that time, kind of my catalyst for all the shit you have to deal with on a daily basis. And it was my passion project. Like every free minute I basically poured into Tempest, and it was not clear if we could, continue as a band. But then we kind of said, okay, you know what? Everybody is quiet. We're not going to play any gigs. Let's do an album. And then it was like, okay, but how do we do an album? Like we never have done that before on our own. Back then, when Hate is Dominion, our first record, Marco was the main guitar, the main sound engineer. He had all the recording equipment. So this was kind of a super deep dive onto, how to record stuff. I mean, I have done demos regularly at home, so I knew how interfaces work and that stuff. But, what mics do you use? How do you place them? How do you kind of mix them? How do you edit the music so that you can send it off to somebody? How do you design, not the artwork. We didn't make the artwork ourselves, but the design itself, like how the booklet looks, the thing which you're holding, that's everything self-made, 100%. That's 100% do-it-yourself. And this entire experience of, kickstarting the CD launch and now playing was so self-empowering, and that's so important in these days to kind of survive as a band. And the release party was a hit on this record, for a small local band like we are. And then we played festivals with this album. And then other festivals came and like, hey, do you want to play on our festival? Okay, we're going to play on your festival. And then people saw those festivals and were like, hey, do you want to play on our small, 4-band evening? Yeah, sure, we want to play. And our entire career, we're a small local band still, but everything which we achieved so far is thanks to releasing this right after the pandemic was kind of moving down. So, and we are now 1.5 years in that this album has released, and we're still kind of feeding off of the success of this, and we're on this wave of success, gratitude, everything working well. We as a band are functioning well because everything is running so smoothly. So yeah, 1.5 years is a long time. I'm 33 years old, so this has to be the most influential album of my life. Sorry guys if it looks like a shill, but hopefully it becomes apparent why I feel that way. So with that out of the way, this is my list of the top 4 influential albums of my life. This was super fun thinking around what albums to choose. It kind of makes you embrace your love for music more. It kind of shifts your focus towards the gratitude which you have for being in this amazing period of time where you got all of this cool music and people actually listening and watching to this video. That's super awesome. One last word from my side. Thank you everybody for watching this video. Luxi for asking me to present this to you. It means so much. You can't believe how much it means to people like us who do this content, who do these, concerts, CDs, and so on and so forth in the underground, reviews, like in Luxi's position. And you guys are kind of taking that and giving feedback on this. It's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Really, I appreciate it. And Watch the other videos of this series, check out some reviews on the Metal Crypt, and whatever you do, stay metal.